Welcome to the Daily Influence, where our mission is to deliver a daily dose of positive influence that can uplift you personally or be shared within your sphere of influence. While not every episode may directly apply to your unique circumstances, we strive to provide insights and inspiration relevant to most people's daily, weekly, and monthly lives. Whether you are tuning in during the morning, noon, or night, the Daily Influence is here for you. Listen, share, and embrace the power of influence in your life.
Welcome to Daily Influence. I'm Gregg Koleno. Thank you for making us a part of your routine. In this podcast, we explore the stories of amazing individuals who spread positivity and make a difference. Join us as we uncover the inspiration, challenges, and impact of their journeys. Today, I'm excited to share that we have Celeste Cecchi with Mosaic Consulting with us. Celeste, thank you so much for joining us today.
Gregg, thank you for the invitation. I'm really excited about our conversation.
I am too. Celeste, can you share a little bit about yourself with our listeners?
I would love to, yeah, actually. And I'm glad that you asked that just to give some context to what I do later on. So I grew up in Papua New Guinea, a little island above Australia, and spent the first 18 years of my life there. And I think just having, which of course at the time I didn't see it as a privilege, but having the privilege of really seeing the world through so many different sets of lenses. There were 16 different nationalities in my class growing up. And so just having that intense diversity, like from an early age, I was able to see. So that was just a part of my own, the privilege again, of like having that many ways of seeing the world. At 18, I moved to Southern California where I did my undergrad, and then moved to Colorado. I taught social studies for a few years there. And life kind of brought me to Chicago. And so when I landed here, I started just kind of seeing some of the discrepancies in systems that worked for some people and didn't work for others. And I think that really opened my eyes to how can I be a part of really building systems and policies and procedures that work for everyone to flourish. So that led me into my grad studies. I studied social justice and policy reform and started working with an organization, but doing consulting on the side. So now I have made this my full-time gig for the past couple of years. I founded Mosaic 2 years ago, I think it is now. And that's what I do. So I am essentially kind of twofold. The consulting I do, it's one part of it is to work with different government and higher education and companies in looking at the policies and procedures that they have, kind of evaluating and giving recommendations on how they can create like more inclusive policies. And then the second part of it is diversity, equity, inclusion training. So I kind of do that through a culture lens of how do we build an inclusive culture in our workplace. So that's, in a nutshell, how I got where I am.
That's such a cool story. What an experience for you to grow up in such an eclectic environment. Very unique and perfect segue into Mosaic Consulting and what you do. And congratulations on pivoting to your consulting firm 2 years ago. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Celeste. Yeah, it's an adventure every day being an entrepreneur, right?
Yes.
Celeste, how do you believe acts of kindness, mentorship, or leadership can contribute to creating a more positive and supportive workplace environment?
Oh, Gregg, I loved this question for a few reasons. I'm going to pull out a few of the key words that you put in this. So the mentorship leadership idea really talks about the importance of influence, which is kind of your heartbeat, right? Like this idea, like our spheres of influence, anywhere where we have influence, we have leadership. And so how can we kind of lean into that leadership? The other piece of it, I love that you use the word creating in this question, and the importance of creating a supportive, which I believe is an inclusive environment, like our workplace culture. So that's, again, that piece of culture, like what it is that we're known for, our culture. If it's not inclusive, then we aren't kind of creating the environment that is for everyone's flourishing. So I think that is the piece of it where we, as leaders, need to be taking a look through our set of lenses, but then recognizing this is just one set. What am I missing in this conversation or at this table or in this project, in this, like whatever it is that we're working on, kind of seeing the world through multiple sets of lenses where we're able to say, like, how do I create an environment here, a culture here where everyone is flourishing? I have to lean into those voices and lived experiences that aren't my own and try on different sets of lenses and really invite those to the table to build a workplace where everyone has the space that they need to flourish. So that is, yeah, I love that question because it really does need to be modeled from the top down.
So that's really good advice. Do you have any tips or tricks? Because it can be challenging to look at things through different lenses. Do you have any tips or tricks for our listeners on how to look at it through other people's lenses?
Yeah, actually, thank you for asking that. It starts with us, right? Like we have to first understand who we are. So even as we were kind of getting set up here at the beginning, I said as an extrovert. So even recognizing that about myself, that I am an extrovert, like knowing that about myself means that I can kind of shift that part of who I am to make space for introverts in the room. But if I don't know that about myself, I don't have the ability to do that. So that first step really is kind of understanding who we are, how we show up in our shared spaces with other humans. And the goal isn't to, I'm not going to change who I am. It's not assimilation is something that's talked about in a lot of these spaces. I'm not going to assimilate. I'm not going to change who I am based on the environment, but I can shift. I can practice like that agility, like cultural agility, and shift who I am to make space for people that I'm sharing space with. So that's really the first step, is understanding who I am so that I can move around and shift that, but then make space and invite others to be who they are. So that's that inclusivity piece, right? Like where we are inviting people to be who they are and making the space for that.
That's really great advice. Thank you. And I love that when you and I were talking before about extroverts and introverts, and you asked me if I was an extrovert or introvert, and like being inquisitive and getting to know people and understand, are you an extrovert or introvert? That's just one of the easiest examples we can always share. Then we know we can look at it through their lens because we know so much about what an extrovert experiences in certain or is like in certain scenarios versus introverts, and we can adjust.
Yeah, right.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Celeste.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to make a difference but may not know where to start?
You just named it, actually. Thanks, Greg. You answered my question for me. That curiosity, right? Like that's the piece. Like that is where we start. We start with being curious. We start with saying like, okay, this might be my way of doing this, or this might be my lived experience. This might be how I see it. And as I was thinking of this even, I'm not going to get into politics, but I'm saying as we're heading into election season, we're living in a very polarized space right now in time, in our country, our churches and family, like just in reality, like this is a very polarized time that we're in. If we could start with curiosity, like rather than just starting with statements like, here's the way to do this, here's what I think, here's what I like, coming at it with like who we are. But if we could start with that like posture of curiosity and just say like, I might have a way, but what's your way? Tell me what this looks like to you. Tell me how whatever this like news article landed on you. And just like being curious and inviting people to share their lived experiences that might be entirely different from our own. Like that piece is a critical starting point for anyone. Just leaning in, starting with curiosity.
I love that. And someone once said that, I don't remember who I heard this from, but there's a reason why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. It's like, ask the questions and listen. Like, let's listen to learn. And so we should be doing twice as much listening versus speaking. And I think the political environment here in the United States, for those of you who are listening to us overseas, we do have an election year coming up, if you haven't heard about it. And there is a lot going on in the United States with this election year. And I think that's a really great point. We do need to get back to that time where we are asking people and having conversations versus just making statements and like pushing your agenda on someone. Let's listen to learn and grow as a human. I love that.
Yeah. Just imagine like the shared spaces, like when we're able to kind of invite people to the table, but keep them at the table. Right now, like we are just ruffling feathers. Like we can't keep people at the table if we're not making space for them. So like, how do we invite people to the table and keep them here? Like we do that by letting them be seen and heard. And so I think just that's a skill set that it takes practice, but it's a really important skill set to kind of validate each other's humanity. So yeah, it's an important one.
I agree so much, Celeste. It's not easy, but if we practice it and we give ourselves some grace, we can each do it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So, Celeste, what message or words of encouragement would you like to share with our listeners who aspire to make a positive difference in the world?
Yeah. I will start with just saying it's hard. I'm not going to lie. Like, this is hard work, right? Like, humans are messy. It's messy and it's complicated, and trying to be inclusive and trying to, even that idea, like trying on others' lenses. Like, we all have a set of lenses. That's a very natural thing. We have a way of seeing the world. But if we have the ability to kind of flex those muscles and become more agile in the spaces that we're sharing, first of all, it's going to be hard work. But the word that I want to leave you with is just this idea that, like, if we recognize that we are a richer and fuller community because of our differences, not despite them. Like, if we can see that, like, we are bringing totally different the things that we have to offer this world are so unique and so different. And if we can see the richness and fullness in that, we'll see that it's worth it. Like, the mess and the hardness of this work is always worth it because humans are worth it. So it's hard, but it's worth it is what I would leave you with.
Oh, that's so great, Celeste. I love that so much. I am so grateful that you are here today and shared all your, words of wisdom and your advice with us. I remember the first time we met at that one networking event, and there was just something about you that I just admired and I appreciated. And I think you are making such a positive influence on so many people, and I'm grateful to know you. Thank you for joining us today, Celeste.
Thanks, Greg. This is such an honor.
And thank you for joining us. If you want to get in touch with Celeste, you can do so through her LinkedIn or through her website, and we'll put both in the show notes. We hope you found today's episode inspiring. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and add us to your daily routine. And also share it with your friends, family, and coworkers to help spread the positivity. We appreciate your support and look forward to sharing more stories of positivity with you. Thanks for being part of our community. Have a great day. Bye-bye.